Welcome back to the great adventures of the Florida Powerboat Club here on our YouTube channel as we join the FPC members for the 2022 edition of the Bahamas Summer Blast. And what makes that different than the Bahamas Poker Run? Well, we did that one back in June, and now it is hot and it is August as we take about 22 teams heading across the Gulf Stream to the Bahamas, second time this summer now, and hitting the same islands, including the Biminis, following that to Chub Cay, on to Nassau, and spending some time around Spanish Wells. Those are the best places to visit if you're a boater, and we're about to do it all over again. But before we get started, let's thank our sponsors. Our 2022 series sponsors include Blackwater Boats and their sister company Deep Impact Custom Boats and their authorized sales center Plantation Boat Mart, Mystic Powerboats, Cigarette Racing Team and their authorized sales center Top Gun Yachts, Cigarette dealer Chief Marine Group, Midnight Express Powerboats, Big Thunder Marine, Concept Boats, Performance Boat Center, Mercury Racing, and Florida Powerboat Club's longest running sponsor, Nortec High Performance Boats. And it's the calm before the fun as we just get down to Hullover Marine Center in North Miami Beach. As you can see, the skies are still somewhat dark. The sun is not up yet. We're looking at about a 6 a.m. start here from Hullover Marine Center. And that's why we got all the lights on. But everybody is just kind of slowly getting into the boats, uncovering them and getting their luggage on board. You can see the light is starting to come in, and we are ready for a very nice, calm crossing. All of the big manufacturers represented with high-performance center consoles, performance V-bottoms, and catamarans. We're about 30 minutes from takeoff. And when I say the word takeoff, I mean that quite literally, because now we're up here about 25 miles north in Pompano Beach, joining with our helicopter photo and video crew at Florida Coast to Coast Helicopters, who have a nice selection of performance helicopters like this Robinson R44 Clipper 2, and those big thick skids, well, those are actual floats that will automatically inflate if the helicopter hits the water. But we're not going to be hitting the water today. We're going to be skimming down fast and furious as we chase down the team. So getting an early start here from Pompano Beach. And remember that all Florida Powerboat Club events do include helicopter aerial coverage. And this is going to be a great opportunity today because look at that beautiful sky. There's not a cloud in the sky, blue skies and very light winds. And that means that the boaters today are also going to have a very nice crossing over the Gulf Stream. And what you can't see is our two crew members on board. That's Elier, the captain, flying the helicopter. But front seat's going to be Jerry from Avatar Photo, and in the back seat, Joe from Skyview shooting the videos. There's their view, another day at the office for these guys as they head southbound, now rendezvousing at Hullover Marine Center, looking down towards the Hullover Inlet. You can see a lot of the boats are already out milling. I can tell you one thing for sure, there's a lot of happy people on board because there's always a lot of anxiety about what the seas are going to be like as we break away and get out through that Hullover Inlet and into the coastal waters, and especially as we go offshore across the Gulf Stream. But with these light winds, and that is what we get in the summer months, and that's why the summer is really the prevailing and the best time to want to go to the Bahamas on a small boat. Because you're going to get the best conditions that you need. And I always remind everybody that the earlier you start in the day, the better, because that's when the winds are light and the seas are going to be the most calm. Nice shot here as we ride on board with Anthony and Jamie Sasso from Parkland, Florida, on their 43-foot Midnight Express. So that's a nice platform to be on, and it's just the two of them and their little daughter, and then Jackie and I joining on. So it's really just a perfect crew for this really incredible Midnight Express. And here we go. Well, guys, that is certainly the money shot as each team makes their way out through the cut very safely, spreading things out. And here's a good example of the different styles of boats we have with all these performance outboards, the catamarans, and then, of course, the center consoles. We've even got a handful of high-performance V-bottoms attending like we did back on the last Bahamas run back in June. So it's nice to see this really eclectic mix of boats. Obviously, the center consoles are the big winners here because they have lots of room for all of their crew, plus a ton of storage space. And then, don't forget the center console down below. Most of them have an air-conditioned cabin and a bathroom. So these are some of the perks you get with these high-performance center consoles that we're seeing in the club. But here's a boat that is in a class of its own here. Jerry and Barbara Herson from the Florida Keys in this brand new Nortec 46 flyer. We've seen a few of these flyers on our FPC events, but Nortec really pulls all the stops when it comes to doing a unique custom design. This one in particular has a forward cabin below and then a giant spacious cockpit for day boating. And look at that power, 5 Mercury Racing 450Rs. And I just love that yellow paint job, which happens to be a signature of all of the Herson boats. Here's Brian Manning on his 38 Fountain Center console, Team Relentless. And again, it's another guy who's known for his high-performance heritage in the past, owning Outer Limits and cigarette models. But now this center console, ideal for the Bahamas. He's going to be going a little slower now, but he's kicking back and going to have a great ride on this Fountain 38. And it's worth mentioning that Fountain has really got their program together with these new models. You can expect to see a lot of Fountains on upcoming FPC events. And it's time to welcome back Team DARKCYDE. Rob and Tara Rill, 2 years in a row attending this event. In fact, Tara couldn't join us a year earlier, but Rob did with all his friends, and he said, I got to bring my wife on this one. So she managed to make it, and they're so happy they could join us. A 2021 AXOPAR Cross Cabin Twin Mercury 400s, an ideal boat for this Bahamas adventure. And it's another Nortec, but this time it's a Nortec 390 Sport. Eric and Ivy Ducrew, and they say it's their first time to the Bahamas. They use this event to celebrate their 28th wedding anniversary. That is awesome. And this, of course, the flagship of the cigarette fleet, at least on the performance side. This 515 is powered by Mercury Racing 1350s, representing the factory. Pete Rivero at the helm. Let's listen into these turbocharged Mercury Racing engines. And now catching up with Frank Esposito and his crew all the way from New Jersey. And this is today's foreshore. This is a brand new 2022 MTI Slot 42 center console, Quad Mercury Racing 450Rs. And you got to love the graphics on this boat. I love the silver, blue, and green combination, and obviously blended in with the white gel coat. What a great looking boat, and it's his second big center console since he joined the club a while back. But like many members, he started with some serious high performance. He had a 51-foot Outer Limits. I believe that one had triple Mercury Racing 700s, but seems to be loving the center console life now. I just want to say a big shout out to all the Jersey boys who love joining the FPC runs. Well, the conditions are just looking superb today as the teams get out in nice fine formation heading south along the beach. I'll explain the details of all that a little later in the show, but meanwhile we're catching up with 1, 2, 3 cigarettes now. Richard Garcia Jr. joining the cigarette factory team to attend this event. Of course, he's from Key Largo, been very active with the club for many years. This is a 41-foot cigarette Nighthawk sponsored by SD Marine Group. Back then it was called Chief Marine Group, but now they're SD Marine, dealers for many upscale brands of boats, including cigarettes. And continuing with this 3 cigarette center consoles, this one's operated by Bly Hofstetter from SD Marine Group. And it's also got Quad Mercury Racing 450Rs. What a great looking boat. And I do believe this is the Chief Marine Edition, which is a part of their inventory. It is for sale, and you can find out more by contacting SD Marine Group in Isla Morada. We're going to take a break from the action momentarily as we bring the pack down off plane. And why did we do that? Well, because of this guy. That's right, guys. We're more than a mile offshore, in fact about a 1.5 miles offshore, and yet we have a paddleboard guy out here who's laying down on a board with no flag. He's wearing a black wetsuit, so he's basically impossible to see as we're riding along. So I had to stop the pack immediately as we circled around him to maintain his own personal safety. But this is a big problem, I must tell you, not only in Miami, but also in Broward County, but along the shoreline, pretty much all in the south coastal regions of Florida, that when you have calm conditions here along the Atlantic coastal waters, you're going to get these guys coming out offshore early in the morning, whether they're diving or snorkeling or just paddleboarding, but rarely do they have proper flag hoisted. You know, the visibility factor is almost impossible to see them as you approach them, especially at speed. So that guy was lucky. And it's another MTI 42. This time it's Fred and Judy Revis, who live just a little bit to the north in Lighthouse Point, Florida. They've done this event before. They love attending with their 42 MTI. It's the ideal platform for them. And Fred's age doesn't stop him one bit. He just hit the reset button. He's got a 48 MTI now, also with Mercury Racing 1550s. Oh, yeah. There's a great shot, and kind of cool to see Will Kufis in that 32-foot skater, a stern drive boat, not an outboard boat. He joined us for the event earlier this summer in the same boat, told his family about it, and they said, hey, we want to do that. So here they are joining us again. Now here's a team that's a long way from home. This is Ryan and Rachel Garnett into the Mystic. It's a 38-foot Mystic Cat. Came all the way from Texas, their first event with the club. They said after watching all of the FPC videos, they finally decided to buy a boat and made the trip from Texas. They said in their video bio that they made so many friends that they just can't wait to come back. And another team that's a long way from home. This is Kevin and Jenica Eisenbach, who came all the way from Lake of the Ozarks with this 38-foot cigarette team, Super Soaker. They made it a family event, brought their little girl Paige along for the ride, and she just had a riot. And this time we stopped for a reason, not that there was somebody out here on a paddleboard, but actually because we hit the reset button to turn the boats and head them to the east so we can get the boats together for a money shot. That's where we all take off together and the helicopter follows. The other thing we're doing here is really just making the best use of our helicopter time by staying close to the shoreline for the first 10 or 15 minutes of the run and then heading offshore. Remember, the helicopter can only go about 8 miles offshore, and this way we're getting the most out of our time with the chopper. And here they are, and I would say that is the ideal money shot. Of course, we're riding out ahead here in this 43-foot Midnight Express, Anthony Sasso at the helm. Everybody did their job perfectly and just kind of laid back and found a lane. And, you know, this is the kind of stuff that just, to me, looks fantastic. You know, seeing it live here on video for one, but even capturing a nice still photo. We like to use these photos for posters and for the backs of T-shirts and for the cover of our magazine and our calendars. But I think that this is just a good way to get the event started because it does hit the reset in terms of the navigation. So now we know that it's exactly 50 miles to go straight to Bimini on a straight line. And it gives everyone a chance to just kind of find their own lane and get settled in for the ride. Miss Jackie sitting pretty on the back seat of this 43-foot Midnight. And once again, we want to thank the Sassos for allowing us to ride along. I had been on a Midnight 43 to the Bahamas before, and I really did enjoy the ride. It's a great platform for the event. Fred and Judy again in their 42-foot MTI Quad Mercury Racing 400Rs. What a great ride. They've done the event before in this boat, and they seem to just love going to the Bahamas, and I know that we're going to see them again in the summer of 23. And it's another big cigarette entry. Actually, this is the Chief Marine Group Cigarette 515 Mercury Racing 1550s in this boat. And if you're wondering, well, where's all the crew? Well, guys, they really just brought the boats out to get some great photo and video, and that's what we're doing right now. I always wanted to ride on this boat, and later in the event, I did manage to jump on board with Tommy. And a very special welcome to Greg and Courtney Seaman all the way from California, Team Triple Play. They're attending in their 2013 39-foot Nortec Triple Mercury Racing 300s. Again, the ideal platform for running across the Gulf Stream to the Bahamas. They traveled all the way from California to be here, but luckily the boat was already in Fort Lauderdale. They wanted to experience the boating across the Gulf Stream to the islands. They loved the freedom to explore different places, do some island hopping, and of course meet some fellow boaters. And now, once again, with the Cigarette Factory team in this Cigarette 515, Pete Rivero at the helm, and what a great-looking machine. If you guys remember, we did a video that came out in the summer of 22, and it was the Gateway Marathon, which featured this Cigarette 515, setting a record from West Palm Beach to Grand Bahama Island, coming in at an average speed of about 95 miles per hour for that trek. So it was exciting to fly in the helicopter above this boat and watch Pete and his co-driver, set that new APBA record crossing the Gulf Stream to the Bahamas. But there's going to be no records set today other than just having fun. We're just managing our speed at about 65 to 70 miles per hour and trying to get the cigarettes together for a nice photo shoot. And there's that other 515 with Tommy Hofstetter at the helm. sponsored by SD Marine Group, or at the time Chief Marine Group. But it looks like we've got a couple more big center consoles coming in alongside. I think that we are starting to put together the initial stages of what will now become a cigarette factory and dealer photo shoot. And with all of these drivers being actually pretty darn good at what they do, all of them very seasoned drivers and throttlemen, some of them are boat racers as well. And this is something that we love to do with the Florida Powerboat Club, is to get our manufacturing sponsors together with as many boats, whether they're dealer boats or factory boats or even customer boats, and get them riding alongside together. And in this case, you can see the variety in terms of the fleet with this Cigarette Nighthawk off to the right, and then, of course, a couple of 515s, which are kind of the flagship of the performance equation. Of course, there is a bigger center console in the fleet, not one present, but they make also a 59 Tirana, which is typically powered by 6 Mercury Racing 450Rs. But a lot of cigarettes attending as we now catch up with Kevin and Jenica Eisenbach in their 38 cigarette twin step powered by Mercury Racing 575s. And I know that little Paige is hiding there somewhere, and they joked about when she got home, she kept saying, "Stu Jones, you got a copy? Stu Jones, you got a copy?" Obviously from all the radio clatter that we had over 6 days using our VHF, so I thought that was kind of cute. And time to welcome Larry and Heather Montalero, who went from a Fountain Performance V-bottom to a Nortec center console, and then back to this 34-foot MTI fully involved. Was kind of shocked to see this move because I thought they really liked the center console, but apparently they like going fast as well. Well, you couldn't have had better conditions for this 34 today. Nice and calm, and they're able to push the throttles whenever they feel like it. But right now they're just on cruise control so that they can stay with the pack. And it's one more time with Jerry and Barbara Herson, who came up from Ocean Reef Club in Key Largo to join us on this brand new Nortec 46. It's called the Flyer model. There's not a lot of these out there, and yes, indeed, those are 5 Mercury Racing 450s, but it's what you don't see that's really unique. That's a full cabin down below with a queen berth, and hidden down below in the aft section of the boat is a complete retractable hardtop. Yeah, kind of like those old classic cars from the 50s. Another one of the many engineering marvels from Nortec's co-owner and co-founder Niels Johnson, who just somehow comes up with these incredible designs. Although this is the first time for the Flyer to come over and bring the Hersons, they've done this event more than a dozen times in a variety of boats that range from 60 to 85 foot. And one more time now with Rob and Tara Real Team DARKCYDE, all the way from Puerto Rico, although they do also have a home in Central Florida. The 2021-foot AXOPAR Cross Cabin Twin Mercury 400s. Now, Rob did the trip with his friends last year to the Bahamas, but absent in the crew was his wife Tara. They had so much fun. He said, "Honey, you got to do this. Promise you, you'll have a good time." And every time I checked in them, yes, indeed, Tara was having a blast, as well as the entire crew. So a big credit to this team for making it back again. Thanks for joining us, Team DARKCYDE. Well, guys, that was a fantastic aerial segment, but it's time to say bye to our chopper for the day. Fast forward about 30 minutes, we're now in the Bimini Harbor. It looks like Jerry decided to put up that retractable hardtop. And here's our ride, that 43-foot Midnight Express, Anthony Sasso at the helm. But he says the family wants to go check into the hotel at Resorts World, and they're heading northbound, and we're going to head southbound. I now got a ride on board with Tommy Hofstetter on this Cigarette 515 as we did a quick circle around the shipwreck Sapona, seeing it's a little bit choppy here today. Not exactly the ideal conditions for snorkeling, so we're going to point the bow south and keep on going right into Honeymoon Harbor, where we've got an ideal situation, being that it is midweek, not the weekend, and that's going to give us all of the real estate we need to get this entire bunch of boats settled in along the beach at Honeymoon Harbor. And what that means is now we have a perfect playground for feeding the stingrays. And sadly, we didn't manage to get our hands on all the video content that was shot at this function, so if you do want to watch stingray feeding, click back one show to our June Bahamas run. Mark Berman has made it now on his Sunseeker as he swivels that big 55-foot Predator and backs into his slip at the Bimini Bay Marina, which is the headquarter marina for the Resorts World Bimini. And remember, if you do decide to come here by boat, you need to make your reservation separately for the marina and then again separately for the hotel, because the two are not really connected. Now, with that said, there is this one long bulkhead floating dock bulkhead in front of the hotel and parallel to the hotel. All of this is controlled directly by the casino. So if you want to tie up here, you've got to get that booked through your casino host. And fast forward to the next morning. Remember that it's still a weekday, so we've got access to pretty much the best slips in the house here, right in front of the casino, all the way around. This is why the Florida Powerboat Club is now visiting Bimini on a midweek format. And that's simply because it's extremely busy here every weekend, and you're going to be fighting for those good docks. But we managed to get the best docks in the house, as we now see Brad Hancock arriving in the new 43-foot Midnight Express. He took delivery of this boat just days before the poker run, so it is their shakedown trip for this new 43. Check out those 5 Mercury Racing 450Rs. And most of us know that Brad is a rated gambler, so I'm pretty certain that he's got this dock lined up for the weekend, which he arranged through his casino host. So he's got no problem docking here on this floating dock in front of the pool. On today's agenda, another day trip, of course. Now remember that the day earlier we decided to go to Honeymoon Harbor, and today we're going to go back and check out the concrete shipwreck, the Sapona, in hopes for some better sea conditions. But right here now, passing by the Bimini Big Game Club. Remember, this was the stopover that we had when we first arrived in Bimini, and one that we often recommend that people do because there's plenty of docking here. As you can see, there's all kinds of docking here on this Thursday. But we have always gotten into the habit of using the Bimini Big Game Club as our landing point so that we can clear customs, because, of course, customs and immigration are both situated right there. And then we can usually make the turn and head back out south, where really all of the fun stuff is that you want to do around Bimini. You've got to go back south out of the harbor to get to the concrete ship or to Honeymoon Harbor, or even to get around to the north side of the island. All access to Bimini is through this one harbor. And just a shout out to Midnight Express. We've got 2 big ones on this run, 2 43s, both of them with 5 Mercury Racing outboards. And here's the green machine we're riding on with Anthony Sasso, his wife Jamie, and his little daughter Ella. Jackie and I enjoyed riding with them. And our first stop over here today is the concrete ship known as the Sapona, a very storied past here with this ship, which ran aground early in the 20th century and was later used for target practice for World War II fighters out of the Homestead Air Force Base. Continuing on now, we're going to get around to the north side of the island. We didn't spend too long of a time there at the Sapona. Once again, if you want to get more images and some video of that experience, all you got to do is click back to our last video, the Bahamas Poker Run 2022, and you're going to see a lot more detailed coverage of what it's like to visit the Sapona and also Honeymoon Harbor. Interesting changes to the backdrop here along Bimini, and this, of course, is the extension of their cruise ship dock, which is now served on a regular basis by Virgin Voyages. So nice to see Virgin getting into the cruise ship industry. Of course, they are known for their all-adult cruises, no kids allowed. So not a bad idea. Some people I know had recently taken one and said it was absolutely fantastic. And for the kid-friendly cruises, there she goes. That is the little Miss Ella taking a jump off the top of that Midnight Express. And yes, indeed, we do encourage families to use this event to get out and enjoy the adventure of cruising through these beautiful islands of the Bahamas. So everybody is getting situated here on what we call the North Beach. You can see we're just, maybe 30 or 40 feet off the sandy beach here. And all of that in the back, I think they call it Rockwell Island now. This is essentially the north extension of Bimini, which is now being developed with luxury homes. And obviously, fast forwarding another couple of hours, a pretty fast-paced video that we're giving you. And the reason for that is this has a pretty aggressive agenda, this event. Now, remember, we're going into ultimately 6 days of cruising. Friday morning now, remember, we did a midweek departure so that we could enjoy Bimini and then reposition ourselves to Chub Cay, which is where we are now, as the ladies of Team BAM are getting off the boat and heading in for lunch. I would like to officially award Frank Esposito and his crew as the Good Samaritan Award for this event. Yes, indeed, they happened to come across Kevin Eisenbach in his 38-foot cigarette Top Gun, who didn't quite do the best fuel calculation on this event. And no harm, no foul. Nobody got hurt. But I would say there's 2 messages that come out of this. One is that certainly the advantages of cruising in a group would allow for this type of thing to happen, where you can get assistance from a fellow club member. And the second thing I would say is always buy fuel at every opportunity you can. Try to keep your tank full, and especially when you have these big thirsty stern drive engines, Mercury Racing 575s. And these events are not the best place to be testing the fuel economy of your boat. Just assume that it guzzles a stupid amount of fuel and keep pumping it in every chance you get. So let's talk about how beautiful this Chub Cay location is. It's been completed in more recent years. It took them a long time to develop the island, but they have these massive floating docks all the way around and a beautiful pool for all of us to enjoy. We already had lunch inside at the Chub Cay clubhouse, and they were ready and waiting for us when we arrived. That gives us a little bit of time to enjoy the pool, and that's exactly what we're doing. Now, if I really had my way, I would love to spend at least one night here at Chub Cay, because they do have these luxurious villas and various accommodations to select from. And look at this incredible beach. You can't get a view that is much better than that as we're standing here poolside. So guys, I would urge everyone to consider this as a destination. Don't know that you would want to stay here for more than a day or two, because there's really not much going on in the island. But let's face it, when you have a group of people, all like-minded people who are on vacation together, club members who are sharing this exciting adventure together, that's really what makes it worth the while for everyone. Hey there! And it looks like Judy and Paige are having some fun in the water. Hey Paige, you got a copy? This could easily turn into a happy hour that would go right into the early evening with this crew, believe me. So somebody's got to break up the party, me, of course, as always, and get everybody rounded up and dried off and back to the boats, because, you know, we've still got about 40 miles to go to Atlantis, and, you know, that doesn't sound like very far, but there's a lot of moving parts, and we've got close to 20 boats registered on this run. Got to get everybody back in the boats and back out on the waterways and all the way to Nassau to get settled in at the magnificent Atlantis Marina, and then, of course, to the resort itself. Most of us staying at the Cove and some of us at the Royal Towers, but we've always had a good relationship with Atlantis, with their sales team, and they give us the best rates they can for our group, and they've always been pretty good about getting the Florida Powerboat Club situated. It seems to me that the marina at this time of year, midsummer, is not as crowded as it used to be, you know, years ago. And this has worked well for the Florida Powerboat Club, because it now gives us the opportunity to get everybody situated. And there's always some cool stuff going on every night. In this case, we had fireworks that came out of nowhere, and we happened to be walking down the dock, and this fireworks show began. I don't think it was any special occasion, just kind of the stuff that happens here all the time. So the format for this event is usually one day at Atlantis to enjoy all of the amenities and facilities, and then one day out cruising on local waterways. So we got together with the Sasso family and jumped on our little tubes for the Rapids water adventure. I remember back in the early days it used to be called Lazy River, and it was pretty lazy, but now it's not so lazy. It's a lot of fun. Boom! Oh. Oh. Oh, crap. That's a good one. Woo. Well, guys, I don't have to tell you how much fun that was, but now it's fun on a different front. Now we're back on board with Captain Jordan Lampkin joining us on the Midnight Express along with his crew. And anyone who has attended these runs over to Nassau would know Captain Jordan Lampkin. He's been our tour guide for many years, and he's a very helpful person to know in the Bahamas, not just for being a cruise guide and get you around safely, but also for repairs, any kind of repairs to outboards or stern drive boats. He's helped all of us many times. Our destination now is Spanish Wells, about 45 miles from Nassau, and it is a very well-managed pig beach, unlike the one that's over at Staniel Key. I don't really like the one at Staniel anymore after going to this one. The pigs here are so docile and so well-behaved, and they don't even get crazy if you pick up the little babies. They seem to be quite okay with it. But I would say the big plus here is that there's a manager on site at all times, and they know what the pigs like, and they take care of getting you the proper food items that are good for the pigs. It's healthy food, but it keeps them active and, obviously putting on a show and entertaining all of us. And off camera, you can't see it, but there's a nice beach bar, which is fully stocked, so you can sit up there. The guys can sit up there, let the kids have all their fun, and I think that's enjoyable to all of us as parents, whether the kids are young or middle-aged or teenagers. But to be able to enjoy this whole setting is really one of the attractions of coming over here to Spanish Wells. And once again, thanks to Captain Jordan and his crew for setting us up here. It's a destination that is a must-do when you're over in this direction near Nassau. Now it's time to follow the grown-ups, and I can tell you that Jackie's had plenty of training by now feeding the piggies. After all, she does manage a household with 3 men on board. There's that 42 Freeman that was missed in the aerial segment. Daniel Dickert and his friends joined us. It's the second 42 Freeman we've seen on the Bahamas runs. And we had 3 stops altogether on our agenda for today's fun run. So in addition to the Pig Beach, we also had lunch at Wrecker's Bar. And once again, we brought most of the staff over to accommodate that for the entire group. So that worked out very well, thanks to Captain Jordan Lampkin and his crew. But the big attraction, of course, then is Royal Island. And this is a new one for many of us. It's a little sandbar that just pops up out of nowhere when the tide goes out. Just a few miles further down the island chain, maybe about 5 miles from where the Pig Beach is. But we managed to get ourselves out there and through the anchor, and then had a great time. There's a swing set there that everyone can enjoy, and we even had a few visits from some of the locals, but nobody had any squid to feed them, so they didn't stick around too long. And once again, I'd like to remind everyone, if you're looking for some more visuals of this experience, just click back one video to the Bahamas Poker Run, which took place in June. So if you watch that episode, there's a lot more detailed coverage of these little activities. And after a great day trip, now fast forward about 24 hours as we get the group together and start heading back westbound to the mainland. And of course, that means crossing over the Bahama Bank. Our fuel strategy today is to leave Nassau full and to make a quick stop over in Bimini, which happens to have fuel this time, so that worked out well. So that's where we stopped off for those who needed to squirt a little more fuel. Of course, some of us with good fuel management and staying off the throttles can easily get back to Miami and have plenty of fuel left in the tank. Of course, it's a long day on the boat if you do try to make the trip from Nassau all the way home, but some of us did, and some of us made the stop in Bimini, and here we are now with our sights on Hullover Inlet, and that means that we have made it home. It was a nice ride across the Gulf Stream, ideal conditions here in the summer months, and that's why we like to choose June, July, and August as the most desirable months for these cruising adventures to the Bahamas. And we're now arriving back midweek. As you remember our schedule, we left back on a Wednesday. We did 2 days in Bimini, and then on Friday headed over to Chub Cay. We spent the weekend in Nassau. Now we're getting back on a Tuesday afternoon as we come in through the Hullover Bridge. Of course, we have to clear customs and immigration. We're going to do that over the phone when we arrive at the dock. And before we sign off, special thanks to Anthony Sasso and his wife Jamie for hosting us on this Midnight Express 43. It was a wonderful platform to do this Bahamas run on, and it's currently for sale. So if you're interested, just call the club office and we'll connect you with the seller. Meanwhile, guys, that wraps up our Bahamas adventures for the summer of 22. Our next episode series will feature the Emerald Coast Powerboat Week from Destin, Florida, taking place in September 2022. So for all of you who are enjoying these epic adventures with the Florida Powerboat Club, we've got plenty more to come, and you can't afford to miss another episode. So be sure to subscribe to our channel and click that notification bell so you'll get an update every time a new episode is released. Be sure to check out the website at flpowerboat.com for all of the details about upcoming poker run events in 2021, as well as membership information. You can follow us on Facebook at Florida Powerboat Club, and you can follow us on Twitter and on these Instagram pages. Thanks to all of our viewers for your wonderful comments on our page, and you guys know who you are, and I really do appreciate that. But if you have questions or comments you want to direct to me specifically, please use my personal email at stu@flpowerboat.com. I check that daily, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. We're going to sign off for now. This is Stu Jones along with our producer Ryan McCoy in the Pompano Beach studio. Have fun out there, guys. Be safe on the waterways. Wear your life jackets when the time is right, and always respect your fellow boaters. Bye for now.